Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Teach, Sleep, Repeat. My name is Dylan.
My name is Hayden.
And we are two UK primary school teachers and we're still on our summer holidays. Hayden, how's summer holidays going?
We're in week 2 of our summer holidays.
Is it only week? Only week 2?
Only week 2.
Wow.
And it wasn't long ago that I was saying, Dylan, let's not do an episode this week. Let's have a break. And he was like, no, Hayden, we've got to commit. And I was like, no, Dylan, we need a break.
But
we're here.
We are attention-seeking people. And if we keep doing episodes, keep getting those little clicks on, and our audience are happy. They want to hear
Maybe
the podcast.
One day these customers will be making us some money from the podcast.
Hayden, we don't call them customers, we call them clients. Guys, if you could follow us on Instagram at Teach Sleep Repeat Podcast. Oh, sorry. I say it so quick that I get excited. At Teach Sleep Repeat Podcast. We'd be really grateful. And if you're listening to this right now, do you know what that means?
They are.
You've obviously given us a 5-star review.
Paradox.
Because someone, we have been getting reviews slowly but surely on Spotify. But that thing happened, Hayden, that we don't like to mention.
Don't bring it up.
And I know, give 4 stars. It's fine.
I can't.
Right? But someone gave a review, right? Which meant we went from 5-star perfect review on Spotify to 4.9.
Oh, it hurts my ears.
Now, that could have very easily just been someone giving us a legitimate 4-star review. However, 5, please. So if you haven't given us a review on Spotify, could you please do so? Sort of bump us back up to that perfect 5.
What Dylan really means is if you haven't given us a review, give us a 5-star review, not any old review.
I imagine someone just really nice, like, of course I will. Oh, it's a beautiful star pattern. I'll just pick a random star name.
Yeah.
If you could, then we'd be really grateful. If you clicked on this episode and you're a brand new listener, it's because...
Paradox number 2.
Not at all. If you've clicked on this episode and you're a brand new listener.
Oh, right. Okay.
Right. So well done. That backfired. This happens a lot straight away. Hayden tries to catch me out and fails mostly. You probably clicked on this because you're wanting some advice about how to smash your training year. So we'll make you wait for that because we're going to have a little catch up about our week first. So Hayden, how's your week off been? Been up to much?
2 guys that you don't care about. Let's go. And no, nothing at all. You?
No, same. No. Nothing.
No, we have. We've had a great week because we spent part of our summer holidays in Brighton.
We did.
Together.
We did.
Dylan and I.
Yep. And obviously.
And the children.
Yeah, the family and stuff.
Baggage.
It was nice though, wasn't it, to go away?
It was.
Baggage. One day they're going to grow up and listen to this.
They're not baggage. You are beautiful, lovely children.
They're not listening, mate. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay, that's right.
No, yeah. Paradox number 4. Children don't listen to podcasts.
Still can't count. That's the 3rd one.
I love hyperbole. Okay, I like exaggerating. And I'll let you think what number 3 was. We cut it out of the podcast. We don't do cutting.
Seamless cuts. Yeah. If you watch this podcast, Paradox number 3, can't speak either. Paradox number 4. Then, have you noticed our cuts before? Because we've been quite proud when we have had to cut it. Obviously, if you're watching it, it's just very jaunty. But audio sounds pretty good, I think.
Great first few minutes for any new listeners. This is a good start. But yeah, we went to Brighton, and there's something about breaking up the summer holiday, because this is going to sound outrageous. I'm going to put my neck on the line. The summer holidays get a bit boring, okay? And it's ridiculous because
bloody
people...
teachers, honestly.
I know, they're going on and on about it.
What do you want?
But they're really, really nice, and you get to catch up on stuff. Don't get me wrong. But breaking it up with little things, I find, like having a start and an end to the summer holiday, sounds ridiculous. Brighton was like part of my start of the holiday. Now I'm in the bulk thing. I don't mind doing a bit of work. Like, I had a little bit of a break. I'm kind of ready now to do a bit of work, whether it's, get ready for September or do a bit of our business that we want to do, get ahead. I feel refreshed enough to kind of plow into something now.
Won't do it though, will you?
No,
I know you won't. I know you won't. If you plan a podcast, I'll tell you what. Let's do a bet right now, and we'll put it on Instagram when we won't. We'll forget. But
no. I'll remember because I run the Instagram. You'll forget because you do.
I run the Instagram.
You do 3 stories a year. One of them was me sleeping the other day. Thank you.
Too busy running our business, Dylan.
I think it's a good little trade-off. You run our business, which like sustains our mortgage payments and stuff, and I do little kind of polls on Instagram about the teachers doing their summers.
If it all pays off one day, you'll be laughing at me.
It will.
Anyway, little bet. End of this summer, I reckon I'm going to message you.
Oh, I just got a cramp.
Oh, guys, I got a cramp live on air. We're keeping this in.
Are we going to keep this in?
Yeah, you still got it?
Oh my gosh, a little bit.
Guys,
oh my god, cramp.
This really is the worst episode you've ever listened to, and you're still here 5 minutes in.
Oh my god, I got a big twinge down the side of my leg.
Twinge.
Right, go on, carry on.
You've been watching too much Olympics.
Just watching the swimming gives me cramp.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Well, listen.
What's the bet?
I'm staring at this leg now. I'm invested. The bet is 2 days before we go back to school. I reckon you will have not done any planning yet.
Oh, for September, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So, yeah.
But I will do it for our business.
Yeah, we need to do that. Anyway, no, Brighton was really good.
Yeah.
Favourite part, You know what I think? It was the lanes, wasn't it?
Right. Anyone who's been to Brighton before or heard about Brighton, it's big on Instagram apparently. You know, our partners were talking about the lanes, and we're like, okay. Number one, don't pick the hottest day of the year to walk 2 9-month-old children around a place you've never been before. Because number two, we have no idea where we were going. And apparently the lanes are just these streets in Brighton full of like independent shops, little like hustle and bustle. Like,
Apparently.
really cool, nice things. So we were just being led on this hot day. We're like, well, at least Lauren knows where she goes. So we'll go down the lanes on a nice street. Apparently the lanes are just rows and rows of empty streets with bins and no people around them.
I think we were just in the wrong place. But when we did find our lanes, we were pleased to know that we can buy jewellery from 35 different stores, all back to back next to each other. That was the best bit.
Honestly, it was really nice and stuff, but there was genuinely 35 jewellery stores in a row next to each other.
Yeah.
How do they make any kind of money? Do you know, I would like a wristband. A bracelet.
Same sort of thing, isn't it?
A wristband bracelet. I like a wristband made of gold. Where should I go? Well, I'll tell you where you should go. You should go to the lanes in Brighton, mate, because you've got 35 shops in a row, the exact same stuff.
And they all sell the same things.
That is a money laundering site if I've ever seen one before.
I know, like how? I'm sorry, they're not making money. If you live in Brighton, you're a listener, please provide us with an itinerary.
We don't have any Brighton listeners, don't worry about that.
if we ever come back. Big if.
If you're a dentist who lives in Brighton.
Whoa. No, not the dentists. They're already after me.
If you get that dentist reference, we love you. Thank you for sticking around.
Thanks. And the customer reference from earlier, even older. Love you more.
Yeah. And if you're still watching after this horrendous start and you're a brand new listener, I promise you we have some good advice on the way. I promise.
That's a big promise. But yeah, I liked the aquarium.
The aquarium was good.
That was nice.
It was all right.
It wasn't as big as I thought it was going to be.
No.
You guys bigged it up a lot.
Yeah. I remember it being a lot better, maybe because I was a child.
Yeah.
And when you're a child, everything's bigger and better.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are you looking at? Is there a fly in the room?
Fly in the room. Got my eyes on you, fly. You better not. Might pass my mic.
This really is the most professional, best podcast you'll ever listen to.
You can tell us to some holidays, and I didn't want to do this episode.
You really didn't want to do it. Honestly, I got into Aidan's house thinking we're going to do the podcast, and he literally went, "Ooh, how do we tell the customers we're not going to do it?
Should we just get a curry instead?"
Well,
we're still getting the curry.
We're still going to get.
Well, we're not.
But yeah, anyway, it is summer. A bit of lethargy in the room, I feel. So we need to perk ourselves up a bit with lethargy. One quick story on understanding how words are spoken. I want to give to someone is, firstly, if you're an avid reader as a child, you tend to pronounce words wrong. So if people say words wrong and it's fun, it's embarrassing, isn't it? If you grew up thinking a word is pronounced a certain way. Okay. What it usually means is you've not actually ever heard the word, but you're an avid reader. Sure. You've seen it written down.
You've picked it up your own way.
A couple of things I never knew how to say properly were quays.
A couple of things?
Yeah. I still don't know. But one was quays. Right. And I was always see quays written down. And I'd be like, oh, a quay is obviously by like a dock or something. Something to do with the water because the character would always go to the quays when they wanted to go into a boat or something. Turns out it's quays. You heard like the Suffolk Key or something it's literally.
I also didn't know that.
Yeah, I know
because I can picture the word quays right now.
Yeah, exactly. And you think, oh, a quay. It's like no, it's a quay. You pronounce it quay.
That makes way more sense.
And then when you say, oh, heading down to the quays, it's usually like down to the edge of the river and there's like boats and stuff. And another one was it's like Old English, I think, or I don't know if it's just a different way to spell the word. Is like a goaler. And I was like, oh, what a goaler? So it must be something to do with prisons because it's a goaler. And it was like Goaler. I was like, this person who worked in a jail was called a goaler.
Right.
No, it's pronounced jailer. It's just spelled differently.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
and it's just a jailer, and they work in a jail, and they're in charge of the keys and stuff in the prison.
So we're in charge of the quays.
In charge of the quays. The goaler's in charge of the quays. Yeah. So, like, on this kind of theme, I still now, as an adult, I don't know everyone else, I still sometimes see words, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like next level up, I don't know what this word is because it's written down.
Another throwback, if you know what that means.
From when you read underfed as underfed,
and
had
a bunch of kids, by the way.
Whole thing in your class were trying to figure out what underfed means.
Tip number one, everybody, just skip later. Don't get too embarrassed when you do something wrong in front of a whole class of children. Just own it.
It's normal.
Carrying on.
But anyway, we were talking to one of our tutors about trying to figure out when's good for them to run their groups and stuff next year. And this tutor got back to us and said, oh, actually, next year, something's changed in my school and my timetable's changed and my husband's, work has changed, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, the end bit was she didn't have as many restrictions anymore as to when she had to teach. So she had more options open to when we could place her and give her a group so she could get tutoring. And she said, because of all this, she was more freer now. And I was like, oh, more freer. And I had to talk to her and pretend I knew what that meant.
F-R-E-E-R.
Yeah, I had to talk to her and be like, oh, freer. Yeah. I know what freer means. We're all freer every now and then, aren't we? In the back of my head, I'm like, I need to look up what that word means. I hope it means that she can do this group for us or something. She's like, yeah, much more freer. Had a whole conversation with her. And then I had to afterwards go on my phone and be like, I wonder what that does mean. And I searched it up and freer and had a definition underneath. And it said, something along the lines of able to do something. And I was like, oh, it does mean that. Okay.
That's
and I just read 1 minute. I was like, wait a minute. That word says freer. She just meant she was freer, more free than she was previously.
Funny.
Just completely read it wrong.
You did exactly what I did with Underearth, which was I still didn't notice at the moment of looking it up that it just said underfed, because I was like, oh, the definition makes sense.
Yeah,
but it didn't clarify
the context works. Still. But the pronunciation, basically, there's no way to teach pronunciation other than just telling someone how to pronounce something. Number one most mispronounced word.
Oh yeah.
That I've ever heard from people do ever. Do you know what it is?
No.
Mischievous.
Oh, mischievous.
Nearly everyone I know says mischievous or mischievous or something
it really
like that.
messed up how I thought the word was spelled actually for a long time.
Yeah. You say mischievous.
Mischievous.
Yeah.
Mischievous.
So maybe a bit less mischievy from us. Maybe
yeah, is that root word? Mischievy.
Should we move on to our advice for these? They've been here for how long now? I don't know, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
They probably deserve some.
Do you reckon Rishi still listens?
I think Rishi still. He's got a lot of spare time in his hands now.
Yeah.
Why? Is he trained to be a teacher?
No, I think he might be.
Yeah.
He had made a lot of ads about it, didn't he?
I must say, pretty good career prospects and money compared to what he's earning now. So
close in numbers.
Yeah, definitely.
Stick around.
Has a lot of respect for the profession. Are you trying to step me off on a political thing?
Sorry.
Right.
Stick around. We're doing the jingle now.
Yeah.
Ignore Dylan.
Okay, bye. Okay, ever the professional. Hayden always writes down when we have to cut in and do little jingles and stuff. And we're trying to do this quick because we really want our curry. So we're like, let's just do this quick. Hayden, we cut off then, and Hayden's hands went onto the desk. Oh, there's no paper here. So we got a used bit of tissue. And he's just written down the timestamp for when we need to cut it in.
Well,
that is absolute professionalism.
Baby, it's summer holidays. I am not here to be professional.
You're so mischievous.
Right,
I just stroked your knee back.
You did, and that would have wigged you out.
That wasn't mischievous.
Made one of my hairs stand upright.
Oh,
that's great.
I have that effect on people. Right, you're here because you want to know how to smash your teacher training.
No, I'm here because I'm doing a podcast.
No.
Sorry, you're talking to the audience.
I'm talking to the audience.
Sorry.
I'm breaking the fourth wall.
Sorry.
So if you've listened to us for a while, you know this already, but Hayden and I have been teaching for nearly a decade now each. So that's 20 years between us. And we at one point did actually have to learn to be a teacher. So we're going to cast our mind back to that. I think you and I both had successful journeys through qualifying as a teacher. There are a lot of stories you might hear from people who really struggle with it. And that is just the reality of, training for this job. I mean, there's a lot
of up and downs, though. I wouldn't say it was a linear path for me.
No, for me, it was pretty up all the way. Yeah.
Came out as a specialist.
Don't know about you. You came out as a maths specialist who passed all of the things. It's really
brilliant. Wow.
What about you?
But you can't wait to hear his advice.
No, but jokes aside, it was such an experience. And I feel like I grew up a lot in that time. Hayden and I both did a PGCE. So we did our teacher training for a year after having already got a university degree. So I got a degree in history. Hayden got a degree in something completely pointless. What was it?
Film, radio, and television.
Film, radio, television, which he uses all the time now.
To make this podcast, thank you.
But again, lots of people choose the 3-year course. Both our partners went down the 3-year route. So this advice here is for either of those routes that you might want to go
other
down.
routes, because there's lots of routes.
Yeah, Schools Direct, for example, is a big one. But basically, if you're training to be a teacher, it's overwhelming. Yeah. It is absolutely overwhelming. Whether you succeed or if you struggle or if there are ups or downs, like Hayden's been saying, it is massively overwhelming going into this. And what I was basically getting to there was I felt like I grew up a lot in that year. I went from a uni student who was dossing about, had a supermarket job that, it wasn't really, there was no purpose to it. I was just putting baked beans on the shelf. To in this year, suddenly I had to teach children. I was in a school. I felt like a professional for the first time.
Busier than ever.
Busier than ever. And we're going to come on to that in a second. So there's loads of ways that you can smash this. And if you're prepared and you understand what's going to come up, that's a big kind of pro straight away. I think what we're going to do is go through all of these points we've got. We managed to splurge down 12 points. So we're going to whiz through them, talk about our experience and why we think it's important for you to know this, for you to smash this as well. So we're going to help you have a successful training journey. And number one, I want to start us off, Hayden.
Yep.
and this sounds very generic, and I remember I said this to you, and you were a bit like, it's a bit of a naff point. But I think it's really important because it comes as a double-sided coin almost, is to absolutely be prepared to throw yourself into this. This is not something, you cannot train to be a teacher half-heartedly.
No.
You have to know and be prepared and understand what is about to happen in order to kind of reduce the shock, because it is incredibly intense and there's no beating around the bush.
Yeah, it's such a slog. And you'll know, actually, when you start your course, there's always at least someone who does fit that category of who goes into it thinking, I can do this on, kind of on the side. It's just a bit of a laugh. Going out drinking is my main thing, and you'll see the difference. That's all I need to say, because everyone's got one on that course where you think, oh wow, they're going to struggle, and they do, because it is very intense. So you just need to be ready for it. We're not trying to put you off by saying that. We're just trying to just make you aware, really, that your mind needs to be ready to be like, I am going to dedicate my life to this for the next year, 2 years, 3 years, however long your course is.
And I think if you're taking the PGCE, just being realistic now, it is much more intense. So it's an intense situation anyway. You've got to do a lot of university work. You've got to go into placements in school. We'll break that all down in a second. But if you are choosing the PGCE route as well, you are cramming essentially all of that into 1 year.
Yeah.
And it feels, having done the PGCE myself, I've seen people quit after 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. I've even seen people quit towards the end of the year because it just got too much. And, we can sit here and discuss whether that's right or wrong, but do you know what? That is just how it is. It's a tricky profession to learn how to do.
It was a tough year. It was probably the hardest year of my career, genuinely, in terms of, if we're deeming hardness now on like how much time it takes up.
Sure.
I absolutely lived and breathed teaching for that year. Like every evening I was doing some sort of essay or research or reading something. And the days we're doing placements at certain times of the year. If not, was at university every single day, early starts, late finishes. Like, it was a really intense year, but I loved it. When it's like a hobby. When you really get into a hobby and you just want to do it all the time. Yeah. I was fully engrossed in it. Yeah. So it was a good experience, but it was a shock to the system, because I was proper lazy before that. I was doing nothing before this year, so it was a real shock.
I think the placements really force you into that mindset of you've got to get it done.
Yeah.
Because you physically can't teach unless you plan the lesson. You really have to, and you're surrounded by other people who are living it as their job. Yeah. And I think one thing I will say right now is, when I say throw yourself into it, you may have heard previous podcasts where we've been like, don't push yourself. Don't do too much as a teacher, because it's going to burn you out and you're not getting paid and compensated. I think though, when you're training, I think it is really important to throw yourself into it.
Yeah.
It's really important to understand that you are not actually doing this year to be compensated. You are learning. You are in university. You have to do work in university without necessarily getting compensated for it. Yeah. And I think if you're choosing to go into teaching, you have to really, really want to do it.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to do it, I think you'll be found out quite quickly. So throw yourself into it, teach the kids, get in front of them, talk to people. We're going to break it down exactly now, how the actual intricacies of doing that and what it looks like. But I think the number one thing is, if you're not prepared to throw yourself into it, you are going to struggle. Yeah.
Second tip is to help with the struggle, because people struggle anyway. Even if you are going to throw yourself into it and try and enjoy the process, make a support group. Just make some mates, find someone or a group of people that you can just go on this journey with. It doesn't even necessarily have to be someone on the course, although that would make things easier.
It should be, really.
It should be, yeah, definitely. But have a support group, people around you, because there's going to be times when you're just totally stressed out and burned out and thinking, I can't do this, I'm going to quit. And actually, you just need someone to be like, no, you're going to be fine, and really just, bigging you up and backing you up. Because I tell you what, if you can get through this year, if it's a PGCE and you can get through that year, or if you can get through your 3-year course, come out at the end of it with your qualification and your teacher credentials and all that, you've done the hardest bit. Genuinely, you've done the hardest bit.
And sometimes it's not even about having someone tell you, no, you can do it. It's about someone else saying, oh my God, I feel the same way. We're going to struggle through together. It's going to feel like we can't do it. But my goodness me, at least I know that these 7 other people who I can speak to and are on the end of the line, they know how tricky this is as well. And I will say, having done the PGCE, a huge reason why I look back on my PGCE with such fondness was that we kind of curated that little group.
Yeah.
There are 5 of us, I would say, when I'm doing my PGCE, where I knew I could go in a bit early, go to the canteen, have a breakfast, travel in with a couple of people. One of them I still work with now. The other one we go with curries with still, who's local. And actually made friendships there where pushed me to go in and do stuff. When I was doing my undergraduate degree, when I was at history, I didn't bother trying to make those links with people because I went to university, I stayed at home, I just traveled in, I went and did the job, came back, and I didn't put myself in those situations. And because of that, I feel like I didn't get as much out of it. Whereas once I made those support groups when it came to teaching, not only could I then, we went around each other's houses to write essays and sit together and do research together. We had a WhatsApp group where I knew I could throw anything in there and they'd be like, oh yeah, same. We had this thing where I had to get 2 lessons done. I had to do 2 lessons today. Oh my goodness. It's like, oh my God, same. And that kind of journey through going from absolute novice to at the end of it being a successful teacher, that was such a huge part, having that support group.
Brilliant. Let's talk about what actually happens now. Let's talk about, you're going to go there day one, you go to uni. What do you actually get from this course? What are you going to be expecting? Because there's kind of 2 elements, isn't there, really, to teacher training in general. That's, again, for any type of course. Number 1 is the university, classic university lectures and, whatever you do at university. And then you've got the placements as well, where you actually go into school and you start that side of the teacher training. And they're 2 extremely different experiences. Yeah. And I don't want to jump too much into the whole point about... So a lot of people have opinions, don't they, about the placements being the bit that matters. It's really important.
I think the point after this, we will talk about the placements and why they are incredibly important. And I do think when you compare them, it's fair enough to say that you get more out of the placements, okay? However, your point here, number 3, this really important point that you should all know is, don't let that make you dismiss the university side, the learning side. So why is that still so important?
I really enjoyed it, and I know everyone's different, and maybe I'm just being biased here, but I think I got a lot out of the lecture side of stuff. Not always.
All of them,
Not always.
Yeah, okay.
Because there were some days where I went in and I just thought, I honestly would leave thinking that was a complete waste of my time. Like, why have they prioritized teaching me that?
Yeah.
Like, it's such a...
Well, for DT, for example, we'd go in and we'd do a bin bag fashion show.
Yeah.
And it was
it was like
one lesson. It was almost as if we were the primary school children and they were like, we'll teach you how to do this lesson. And it was like, great. I mean, we had a nice time. It was kind of fun. Yeah. But there are other lectures where I felt like I got more out of it. So what are those lectures that you're talking about?
Well, just to quickly jump on that first point, I can honestly say the art and DT lectures that I had, or seminars, whatever they were called, I didn't ever use any of that stuff, genuinely, because they were so specific. Like you said, there was like one of them was to make an animal out of like the scrap stuff, and I was like, I've never done a unit in 10 years of teaching where I've actually needed to do that thing. It wasn't.
And it kind of wasn't about how to go through the act of creating the unit. It was like, here's a unit that exists, let's try it.
Exactly. So that leads really nicely onto what I felt like was the good side of university lectures, which was when it went to the meta. It wasn't about, here is a lesson, let's all do it. It was, here is how you teach maths.
Sure.
Here is how children learn things.
Here's how to go from a curriculum to a scheme of work to a string of lessons.
And it all fell under, for me anyway, the really, really juicy stuff was child psychology. It was all the child psychology stuff. That's what I found really interesting.
Are we talking like Vygotsky, Brunner?
All of the Piaget, all that sort of stuff. Still remember it.
The zone of proximal development.
Yeah, but I found that, people sort of joke about it, but it was really useful. And I do genuinely, I think, use that in my understanding of when I'm sat there with a kid now, and my job is to work out what they can do, what they don't know, what are their blocks, like everything about them in
where they are on their journey,
where they're on the journey, and why they, maybe what's stopping them from getting to the next place. It does all come into play, I think, of just being like, I understand that young brain, because it's very different to an adult brain. You can't just be like, well, I learn like this. Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes a lot of teachers make.
Well, I've shown you how to do it. Why can't you do it?
They expect kids to kind of be able to pick things up in the same way they do. And it's like, whoa, no, you are way, way, way further down that line. Like, you cannot compare yourself and the way you learn with kids. They learn so differently. Their brains are like sponges, but they're not the same as yours. So
and they've got, you as a teacher, I feel like our biggest job, and this is what excites me, honestly, this is what I love teaching, is to curate a way for them to feel like they've figured something out themselves.
Exactly.
But you have given the scaffold.
Yeah.
So you've provided the context. You've given them the blocks to build the tower, but they still have built the tower themselves.
And that's the kind of stuff that I remember reading about. Sure. That I could then go and look and see in practice, and I could be like, when I was watching teachers, for example, like, they're doing this thing that I've read about. I understand that, and it means more to me now. And
I don't necessarily think that teachers are stood at the front of the room going, aha, Piaget unlocked. I need to put this part of this, this intellectual thought practice, bubble into practice. Like, no. But do you know what? Understanding that at the start and putting it into practice and doing it in your training,
building on it.
that is the foundations for you to then be doing it naturally as you go on.
So I think it makes a difference. Basically, I think people are quick to dismiss the lectures and be like, oh, whatever. I only learn from the placements, but you'll be surprised how much subconscious stuff you pick up actually from reading all of the research and doing the essays.
Quick question on this then before we move on to the next one, because it is linked with this idea of, you know, learning to be a teacher is also about this child psychology and learning the act of teaching, right? That's what you're talking about here. It's the actual lessons themselves you can pick up whenever. Anyone off the street probably could look at a lesson plan and be like, oh, well, I'm building
and get the subject knowledge.
So you're talking very much about like the act of being a teacher.
Honestly, the bit that makes it a degree.
Yeah, sure. So
like a qualification.
Do you think, having gone through all of this, a teacher who has gone through all the child psychology and understands all of this stuff, done the essays and the research, etc., can a teacher teach anything after they've done that? Because I spoke to a non-teacher who came to me and said, one of my other friends, they're a teacher. And they said to me, they could teach anything now that they've trained to be a teacher. They feel like they could teach anything.
Sure.
And they were like, but that's stupid, right? Of course you can't. And what do you think?
I think, no, I agree.
Yeah.
Because I think it's the act of teaching is almost like a separate thing to the subject knowledge. And we've always established that. And you guys will pick that up on your course if you're doing that. But I think it's really important to differentiate between those. I reckon if I had the time to absorb the subject knowledge properly, I probably could teach any subject fairly successfully to kids because I understand how they learn. Yeah.
That's what I had to try and explain to this person. It was basically saying what they mean when they say this. They don't mean suddenly that they can now go and teach the intricacies of economics in the 1950s of America because they don't suddenly know everything ever. But what they mean is, with the time given to understand your subject knowledge, which all teachers need to do anyway, they could break that down into small chunks and deliver it in a way which is meaning that a child understands something.
No, I agree. Quick side point, because we didn't put it on here, but I want to mention it. Subject knowledge. I'm going to say this right now. Don't panic too much. If anything like me, I got myself in such a rut over the idea that I didn't know enough stuff, like going into my first year of teaching. By the end of this teacher training year, I was like, I need to know every part of the whole curriculum for every subject. You won't do it unless you're crazy brainiac, but you just won't do it, and don't worry, you don't need to. Honestly, it's the lowest down on the list in terms of what you need to have absorbed to be a good teacher. You can pick up the subject knowledge when you need it.
As a trainee teacher, what I would say is you need to know enough to pass the maths test, because remember there was like maths test and stuff like that. But what I would say is genuinely is when you get your placement and you know what class you're in, what year group you're in, don't even worry about learning the whole year group right then. Just think about what's the next term, what they're going to do in maths that you're planning. Maybe it's a 2-week unit. Just understand everything of that 2-week unit right there, and then that is enough when you're starting. You will pick stuff up, and over the year you'll pick up stuff naturally, and also then you can push yourself a bit more. If you were to go and pick a random teacher genuinely in a school and ask them, let's say they're a year 2 teacher, if you were to ask them what's on the year 5 curriculum for fractions in maths, I wouldn't necessarily judge that teacher if they didn't know what was on there.
No, not at all.
So don't worry, you can be an amazing teacher and do really well in your year without knowing the whole curriculum for all the year groups ever.
Because you'll want to compare yourself naturally with teachers that have been doing it for a long time, and with experience that is something that does come, which is a kind of nice perk to the job, is you do start to learn actually just implicitly the whole curriculum, and it's great to know that, but you don't expect yourself to know that straight away. Like, that's something you get with experience. There's a reason there's pay progression and experience, points almost in teaching. There's got to be something.
There's some stuff you cannot, skip. No. You just got to come. It comes with experience. Yeah. Okay, so moving on then, I suppose you talked about the university side of things, and for PGCE and bachelor's degree and stuff, absolutely. But there is other ways of learning to be a teacher where you're literally just on the job. You're in a school. Yeah. So every single person who learns to be a teacher is in a school at some point, whether it's placements or they're just there, whether they're in schools direct, they work in a school. You can get paid now to train to be a teacher, working in a school constantly. It is widely regarded, and I think it's absolutely right to say, if you're listening now and about to go into your training year, the placements are the bit where you need to absorb as much as possible. And the placements are incredibly important. And I don't think it's wrong to say that you learn more than in the lectures. You learn more by doing. And that's something you literally learn in the child psychology when you're in lecture. You are told children learn better from doing and seeing. And then eventually they can do it. And it's like, cool, that's true for adults as well. When we're training, you just learn do it more from being in
it's like
school.
People, if you try and learn a language, people always say, don't they, the best way to learn a language is go and immerse yourself in that culture. And you'll pick it up quicker rather than just try to sit back and learn it from a book.
Yeah, exactly that. So when you get your placement, throw yourself into it. Something I did when I got my placement was I found out what school it was. And immediately went onto the school website, found the email of the head teacher, emailed the head teacher and said, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. I'm a PGCE student. I've been placed in your school. I'm really looking forward to it. And I think I said something that I picked up from the website as well.
Yeah.
Something, I can't remember what it was, but I read something. You care. And I think, it was the motto. Something to do with the motto. And I was like, oh, and I think your motto is really good. And I'm excited to live up to that and stuff. But just set off on the right foot. I think there's a lot of the time with placements, you go in and it's important. And I guess this is kind of a separate point, but it's linked to when you get your placement. Be the active person. Okay? Teachers are busy people, and I think it can be mistaken for rudeness sometimes. Teachers, we need to make sure students feel really welcome, and if they don't, that's on them, and that's awful. And all teachers should be doing that. But as the student as well, you just go out of your way to say hello to people. Go out of your way to introduce yourself to people.
Build those relationships.
Exactly that. Because do you know what? I guess this is the next point. Those relationships are what will genuinely make or break. And this is one of them points now, I suppose, where a little bit of this point is on someone else, and you don't always have control of this because you might have a not very supportive school or a not very supportive mentor or class teacher. But Hayden, how important is that relationship with the person who you're literally learning the job with?
I mean, obviously I'm going to say it's so important because it is, but you need to have, you're going to be in a constant dialogue with them. You're going to be absorbing everything about the way they do their job. And a lot of the way they teach will probably become the way you teach as well. Some of it may be actively not the way you teach because you look at it and you think, oh, I want to do this differently.
So very quickly clarify for people listening then. You get a placement in a school.
Yep.
And I'd say the main people during your placement are your mentor, your class teacher, and maybe the head teacher. Yeah. Right. So can you just explain, what do we mean when we say class teacher or mentor? Like, what's the difference?
Sure. Sometimes they're the same thing. But so each school will, any school that takes on students will have a mentor, and that can genuinely just be an extra job put onto a full-time teacher. Yeah. So it goes back to your point about being like, be active, because you know what, they're probably really busy. Some schools, they have dedicated mentors that have way more time, and other schools don't. It's just potluck. But they might not be your class teacher. They could just be another teacher whose job is to guide you through your teacher training and kind of do your official observations and gradings and things like that.
We'll talk about that.
Which we'll come back to. But your class teacher is the person who is the person whose class you're in. So it's their class of kids that they've allowed you into their class to do your teacher training with the kids that they teach, and they are their normal class teacher. So it's a big thing for them. Like, I remember not really thinking about it when I did my teacher training. I was just sort of like, it was all about me. I had quite a big ego. And I was very much like, well, I'm here to do the teacher training. I'm the most important person in this room. And actually, it was sort of like, I am also just coming in and disrupting this class teacher who's not being paid anything extra to have me in their classroom. And they're kind of all, guiding you as well, sort of passively. So I think you've just got to be aware of who these people are and the fact that they're probably not being paid anymore. They're probably just doing this because they want to help you. Yeah. And they're still going to be potentially judged on the progression of the children in their class. Yeah. When they've let's be honest right now, a brand new trainee teacher is probably not as good a teacher. Well, it almost definitely isn't as good a teacher as they are. Yeah. And then at the end of the year, when they have their appraisal, they've still got to make progress and have progress points. It can be quite stressful. And I think the best class teachers, when you have a student, are the ones who also try and make that bond with you. And I've got to give a shout out to my class teacher, because I honestly think I had the best experience that you could possibly have with a class teacher in terms of how amazing they were at teaching, how unbelievably lovely they were. I felt like I'd walked in to Miss Honey teaching, because I always remember the day I walked in as a trainee teacher. God, I had hair then, didn't I? Yeah. You had hair then, but I'm talking about you. Miss Honey. I walked in to my the teacher's classroom I was with, who's Fran, who we work with now, and is just amazing. Walked into her classroom, and it was like something out of a film, because they had their class assembly that day. And there was a group of kids over in the corner putting on mad scientist hats. There were a group of kids over here getting ready, and they were going through their lines and stuff, and Fran was rushed off her feet at the front, but being lovely to the kids and smiling, and this is going to be so fun. And honestly, it was in that moment I was like, I'm going to have fun here, because it was amazing to see the class teacher's relationship with the children, how they adored the class teacher. They were having fun. I get to walk in on this thing where I can then throw myself into it a bit more and talk to the kids about it. And that relationship that I built with Fran, which was professional, and then ended up, we're just friends with Fran now. She's just so lovely, and she works with us with our tutoring and things like that. I copied her. I was a student teacher, and I promise you, I watched her, and then I copied her. And I was like, that's good, and I did it. And it can't be underestimated how powerful that bond and that kind of what you can learn from them can be. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and it makes such a difference when they're polite to you and nice and actually just accommodate you. I'm thinking back, must have been so annoying, right, for my first class teacher. Oh, my first placement.
I mean, it is you.
my first
let's
placement.
get that clear. That's annoying straight away.
Oh, thanks,
This
mate.
geezer.
Stop that there.
Ever since Alistair Campbell came on the podcast.
You've been desperate to replace me. Yeah. So my first class teacher, it was a year 1 class. So that was like an experience jumping into year 1. And we just had like some lectures on like reward systems and behavior management and how to use positive reinforcements to get kids to do.
Are you going to talk about your behavior thing you did?
Yeah, my reward scheme.
Your
I just love it. Mental. So there's me.
Sorry, listeners. He has told this twice already, but I'll tell it again.
Listen. Hang on, I can't remember, so they can't either. But I invented, and she just let me do this and did not make me feel like an idiot, because obviously it was pretty stupid. She let me invent my own behavior system. I hadn't really thought about the fact that house points already existed. It didn't really cross my mind, and I invented this thing called horse points, and it was literally a bunch of horses.
Change one letter.
I know. A bunch of horses going across the track, and they all like there's loads of little increments, and if they got to the end, they got a reward. And I was so pleased with myself and so happy. But what was nice was, even though it was a really silly idea, and house points existed that already served the purpose. She just let me do it, and she let me have that experience and evaluated it with me at the end.
What do you think about horse points?
Well, they're all neighing now, and none of them won the thing. But it's just good, and I guess I want to lead into the next point, which is not everyone's so lucky. We were really, really lucky, I think, with our placements in our schools. Not everyone is, and you might be one of those unlucky people who get placed in a school where it's just perhaps a bit toxic, or it's not that. If you've listened to our episodes in the past, we talked about toxic schools.
You're seen as fodder almost. No, you can't. Student teachers can be seen as simply, oh well, that's free cover.
Yeah, that free cover. Or they'll go trims and stuff.
Yeah, they don't care about your progression. They just care about it's another body in the building. We'll use them however we want. And it's important to understand that as a teacher. Not all schools are the same, right?
No, exactly that. Not all schools are the same. And I guess a second slightly different point here is, don't judge the entirety of teaching on a bad placement, and that could be bad because the school's not that supportive. It can also be bad just because, I don't know, it was your first one or whatever, and something went wrong and you didn't get the grading you wanted, and you just didn't have the best placement that you wanted to. Schools are so different that the experience itself and being in a different school can make such a difference to you. Your personality might not fit. Simple as that.
I always find it quite sad when I talk to a student teacher, or they mention the fact that they think they're going to quit because of an experience in the school. And I'm like, do you know what? Even when you're qualified, if you get a job somewhere and you find out it's bad, it's always best practice just to try and go to somewhere else. I can't stress enough, if you're training and it's your first or second placement and you think, Christ, this teaching are all schools like this? No, they are not. I promise you. If you've done 3, 4, 5, 6 and it's like the consistent stuff is winding you up, and you're like, you don't want to do your planning at home, or like you don't want to prep anymore, you just find the job
like
itself.
Being with kids.
That's different.
Like
like stuff like that, maybe take that as a red flag. But if you're thinking, oh my gosh, this school doesn't give me the time I'm allowed, do all schools not give me the time?
No, they're so harsh on me, they're so mean. If that's good, probably a good rule there, isn't it? If you can evaluate it and you think it's the adults around you that are making you feel so negative about it, then maybe don't give up. Just try another school first if you can. And
because you're not going to be an amazing teacher straight away. You are not going, and we're going to come on to later how you can kind of deal with that, because I think for people like Hayden and I, and a lot of people listening, if you're not immediately very good at something, it can be quite frustrating.
You go, I was very hard on myself, and I imagine you were as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to be the best immediately, which just is not realistic with this job at all.
So, all right, Dylan, you're a student teacher, walks in your room tomorrow. What do you want to see them doing?
I think student teachers do better when they push themselves out of their comfort zone quicker and sooner than other people. And what I mean by this is, I suppose earlier we said about throw yourself into it. I'm being really specific now. When you walk into a school, into a classroom, go and talk to the kids straight. They're not going to bite your arm off. I remember being scared of talking to them because I thought, I'll be annoying. I can't even fathom it.
You'll be more mystical to them, and they'll be looking at you more weirdly if you don't interact with them. Genuinely, because they'll just be like, who is this person in our room?
Talk to them.
You just talk to them, they'll be like, oh, it's just another adult.
Literally, throw yourself into it. The ultimate analogy for this is reading a story to the class. And it is the ultimate icebreaker. So if you're going, when you go into your placement, the first thing that you should maybe do, or ask your teacher if you can do, or your teacher will probably ask you to do it if they're a teacher kind of worth their salt. They'll kind of introduce you to small things with the children. The fear I had of reading a book to the children, to the class, was unmatched. I'd never felt fear like it before. now looking back, it seems insane because I'm silly with the kids, whatever. But it's okay to be petrified of stuff like that. But what you have to do is not let that define what you do. If you're scared of reading a book with the kids and you're doing a teacher training course, it's fine that you're scared, but you can't let that mean you don't do it.
Yeah,
you're doing a teacher training course.
Yeah, definitely.
You're going to be scared of doing stuff. You have to just do it. Once I'd read with the kids, there wasn't much intonation. I didn't really do any voices because I was embarrassed.
Yeah, and terrified. And
honestly, but you've done it now. Yeah. Next time you read with them again. Next time you read with them again. I read with my class at the end of every day, all week. By Friday, I was doing silly voices and the kids were loving it.
Yeah.
I promise you, no matter how scared you are right now, in 2 years' time, you'll be delivering entire curriculums you planned yourself.
Yeah.
Just push
Without
yourself.
fear.
Just push yourself out your comfort
I bet you went through some shirts.
What? Because sweat.
Yeah, I certainly did. I actually remember very well how I was very conscious of that for the whole. I tell you what, I'll admit this because I think you got over this hurdle quicker than me. I think, but those like
if it's embarrassing, I did. I definitely did.
Definitely did. Those intense nerves, I think, lasted for me for all of my teacher training year and pretty much all of my first year of teaching as well. And it was after that where suddenly I really felt comfortable.
So why were you nervous? Because a lot of people listening will resonate with you there. And I genuinely didn't feel those kind of nerves all the time.
Mega nervous.
Little things we're scared about.
Yeah.
But why were you still nervous even year or two in?
Imposter syndrome. That's all it was. It was just imposter syndrome. Right. I just thought, I'm not good enough for this. There's no way I can be doing this. Who the hell has let me be in charge of this class? So for the training year, it was typical training nerves anyway.
Sure, of course.
And then for the first year of teaching, it all just got reset because they were like, hey, do it all again. This time no one's with you and you're in every day. Bye.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God,
and you're
I'm
getting paid money now. You're the professional. You're getting paid. This is your
Parents
job.
want to speak to you. There's not a teacher that you can go and ask.
Sure.
Like right in your classroom with you. Obviously there are other teachers you can ask.
So for someone going through their training year, doing those small steps can at least prepare you for that jump.
Oh, big time. Because I tell you what I did. I absolutely pushed myself outside of my comfort zone at all times, which is why I think I was nervous.
Do you know what? If you don't do it in your training years, you'll have to do it in your ECT year when it's not a choice anymore.
Yeah.
And it's going to add to your nerves already.
Yeah.
So
I have no regrets.
The more you can kind of tick off, like go and talk to a parent about a kid's behaviour in your training year. Go and do it. Even if it's with the class teacher, you taught that lesson. No, I need to talk to your parent. It is so scary talking to a parent about their child for the first time. It's unbelievable, especially when it's negative.
Yeah.
But do you know what? Do it. If you could do it wrong, you've got your class teacher next to you.
Yeah.
You've done it once. They can step in. Yeah. You're a team, and that's where the relationship comes in.
But I tell you what, 10 years down the line, I genuinely don't feel nervous about anything involving in this job anymore. Like anything at all in this job. Just nothing makes me feel nervous.
At what point did you stop feeling nerves, do you think?
I think, honestly, after my first proper year.
Once you got through
it. My first proper year, once that was over, I sort of... I'm sure I said that a little
Imposter syndrome probably still stayed around for a bit.
Yeah, but generally I wasn't like... I was very conscious of it for my first year. But after that, I felt like it kind of went away. But,
okay, right.
So the nerves go away is the kind of point we're making here. They do go away. Just give it time, but don't succumb to it. You have to push yourself out of that comfort zone.
Absolutely. Okay, so a huge part of your training year. We can't not mention this. We're talking about how to be successful in your training year. Massive part of this, the big O word. I'm not meaning Ofsted, but observations. It's insane looking back actually how often you're observed, right or wrong. Having lots of observations.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm very pro observations, which I reckon people probably wouldn't think we are.
No.
Because we're quite liberal with teaching. But the observations, I'm very hot on that. I think they're really, really, really important. Yeah. First part of your career.
So my first observation was genuinely an informal one. And I think the more informal ones you have, the better.
Yeah.
Because class teacher, you can ask your class teacher, if you're teaching, the class teacher's not. So your class teacher might have stuff to do, let's be honest. But a really good practice is for your class teacher to give you constant informal feedback. And that was one of the best things that helped me. Fran would constantly give me some constant feedback. But you know what? She's a teacher. So she made me feel good about myself. The small wins were, oh my, the way you read that book and you picked up on that behavior really quickly. That was fantastic. Next time, maybe, if people are talking whilst you're talking, that should be your line.
If she didn't do the nice bit and just gave you the same critical feedback, how would you
I think maybe you'd start having a defensive wall going up.
Yeah.
And I think that's very normal. And I suppose this is the point we want to make here about observations is try and take them as help and not a criticism. Now, will you be criticised in observations? Yes, of
every
course.
single time.
That is what an observation is for. You've got to be ready for someone to tell you something wasn't quite as good as it could have been.
Yeah.
That's something that took me a while to get my head around. Because it's not nice being told you're doing something bad.
Because we want to be the
best
straight
away. It's completely normal. Yeah. But, understand and accept that especially through the informal ones, was a really nice way of breaking the ice. And just her saying to me, look, but you could do better with that, couldn't you? And I was like, yeah, you know what, I could. Of course I could. I'm training as a teacher. My mindset, you have to separate your ego from your ability to become a better teacher.
I need to go back and tell me this. I struggle with it. I really did. Not all the time. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was down to the relationship I think I had with people.
Sure.
Because there were some teachers I'd take it like they were gospel. And I don't know, other times maybe from mentors or from like university, whatever they were called. What were they called? Were they just university mentors?
Tutors,
that's the one. Where I'd just be like, no, I disagree. And do you know what? Going back, I wish I could just be like, shut up. Like, just listen to them. Even if you do disagree a little bit, just at least listen and take on their feedback as a serious bit of feedback rather than just being like, no, you're wrong. So I look back at myself and I'm like, of course I was wrong.
Bit cringy.
Yeah, it is cringy.
Yeah.
Really, really cringy behaviour.
Just be open to it.
Yeah, I just ego. It was in the way. Drop it.
Yeah, I had something in my training year where I had really positive observations all the way through, and I felt like I had a really successful time, and I was very grateful for that, and I felt great. Towards the end of the year, I had an observation where that it was from someone external who'd come in, and they were more critical than positive, and their point of view was clearly just, well, you're towards the end of your training now. This is stuff that needs to be improved. Yeah. Get over it. I don't need to pander it. And that's perfectly acceptable. That's fine. That's fine. You know, maybe I wouldn't give feedback like that, but this person did. So just got to get over it as a professional.
It was still true.
It was still true. And one thing they said, and I really got my back up about it because I felt like they were just calling me sexist, right? But they were just making a point. They said they sat and counted how many answers I took from people, and they counted how many boys and how many girls. And they just gave me a fact. And they said, you took 8 boys' answers in this discussion and 2 girls.
Wow.
And they said, they didn't call me sexist, obviously. They just said, something you really need to make sure you're doing is that there's a fair representation and there's a voice in the classroom. Which is so important. Completely true. Absolutely important. But my first thought then was, don't you dare question my ability to discriminate.
I didn't do it on purpose.
I didn't do it on purpose. And I was like, no. That wasn't the point. Take a step back. That's the perfect example of getting your ego out of it.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that 80% of the chat in that lesson were boys and 20% were girls.
Yeah. So there was something going on.
Of course, she didn't even say in that moment, you should have done something different. She was just saying, be aware of this.
Yeah, be aware of your internal bias. And you're a bloke.
And even if it's not, but I can't get this across to people enough. Even if there's no bias, even if there's no internal bias, even if it's the most stretched way of not possibly being discriminating, just understand that is what happened.
Yeah,
that's all she was saying. This is what happened. And in my head, I was like, well, more boys were putting their hand up. There weren't girls putting their hand up. Pick them. Find out.
You find they're the kind of moments where it's like you just don't know something.
Sure.
Because you know what an experienced teacher would say is, okay, there's other ways you can gather answers and information from children. Yeah. So what a really experienced teacher would do is would notice that the same few kids keep putting their hand up, and they'd think of a different method of gathering information to make it more fair. Yeah. You didn't know that. Yeah. You didn't know how to do that at that point, so you just thought, well, it's not fair. They're just wrong.
And you know what's really interesting? If I think about my whole of my year training, I think about all the feedback I was given. That stands out.
Yeah.
So do you know what? Sometimes you will be bullshit and you'll have your guard up and you won't like something, but it will stick and it will be important. Yeah. And that was important. So you use observations as ways of improving, separate your ego. It's not a personal attack. And you know what? Yeah, if there are lines and someone's being unfair on you, fine, there's ways around that. But in general, they're there to help and they're just saying what they see. Think, okay, am I maybe someone who could improve in this way?
Brilliant tip. Next tip. Non-contact time. That's a term you'll hear. Non-contact time refers to the time that you're in school on placement, but you're not directly teaching during lesson time. So basically, it means you've got time. The teacher's teaching. You are either watching that lesson or you've got time to go and do something else.
And across the time you train, the non-contact time changes, right?
So it starts. I don't want to say how it starts because I know for the PGCE it started quite high. It was like 50% or something like that.
It's 30, I think.
30 maybe, yeah. Whereas I know that when Lauren did her 3-year.
Yeah, exactly.
She said that it was much lower in her first year. Honestly, it was like 10% to start with or something like that. Like one lesson
time
a week.
Spent actually teaching.
Yeah, and the rest of it you were just in school, like absorbing other things. So it was 1 day a week or something like that for the first placement. Really weird. Sure. Anyway.
But eventually by the end of your training, you'll be 80, 90, even 100%. You'll be basically doing what a normal teacher does at that point.
Just to get you ready, which makes sense.
Yeah. So that non-contact time then, when you're not actually stood in front of the people teaching, why is that important as a trainer?
Do you know what? It's some of the most valuable time because it's time that you can go and watch other teachers. They're experts. Yeah. You know, some more experienced than others. it is gold dust time, and it's one of those bits of time where you look back, it's like, hindsight is a wonderful thing. Because as an experienced teacher now, where you barely get any time out of the classroom, like training is far and few, between, other than like your staff meetings and things like that,
which is outside of contact time.
Outside of contact time, it's hard to get out of the class to go and like learn new things. So use this time, like anything you get. Don't just think, oh, I could just go and sit in the staff room and get some of that essay done.
Yeah.
Genuinely, if you're in school on placement and you're not making the most of lesson time watching other teachers, you're not making the most of your time, is what I'm saying. It's so important.
Yeah. I always think back now, because it's been 9-10 years since we trained. And if something still sticks in my brain now, clearly it was impactful to me. I went to watch a year 6 teacher do some English, because naturally I prefer maths. I was a maths specialist. And my English, we were doing a scheme. We were doing Read, Write, Ink, and it was children who struggled with their spelling and their reading. And I had a set who struggled with their spelling and reading, and we used Read, Write, Ink. And I went to watch. I was a year 5 actually. Went to watch someone who was doing the same thing but with the year group above. And I remember I sat and watched them do the whole lesson, and I was like, oh, okay, I've learned 8 things here. And then what I could do is the next day I was teaching English. I could copy. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen children be successful. I've seen a group of children struggle and how the teacher helped them. I've seen them deliver a scheme of work. I was guessing before then. And because I had the time to go and see someone, I was a better teacher. There is nothing I enjoy more now than when, as maths leads, we get a chance to go walk around and watch maths being taught. Because even as maths leads, where I absolutely feel the most confident with delivering maths, I promise you, as a 9-10 year experienced teacher, I will still learn something and have something to take back to my classroom.
Same. I always pick up something when we go around the school. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. Or even sometimes it's just a refresher as well. You're like, oh yeah, I used to do that. I forgot. I've done that in ages. I'm going to start doing that again, building it back in. Definitely.
Because it can be tempting to do your planning. It can be tempting to do your marking.
Do
you know what? Still use that time, because it is tough. But my goodness, the number one thing has to be to go and watch people. Go and do it. It's so important.
Right. Last couple of points, Dylan. Now, next one, we've sort of made this point already, but I want to come back to it because we can add more, which is just accepting that you won't know everything straight away. You won't learn everything yet. And you've got to just be okay with that and not be like, no, I must learn everything by the time I finish training.
So what is the tangible advice then? You say, okay, cool. I know I won't learn anything. So what do I have to do then for a year? Do I just accept that? Or
no, I think you need to accept that, but also you need to prioritize what you want to work on. That's one of the biggest mistakes I made. Is I was trying, looking at the teacher standards. I was like, I need to nail them all at once. And actually, consistently from my feedback, every single time I was observed, it was your behavior management's not very good. You're not controlling the classroom properly. And I'm like, but I'm doing that, but I'm also doing these 7 other things because I need to get my subject knowledge right for this. And I've just learned this new thing about how to teach this maths concept. So I'm going to do that. And it's like, no, just stop. Just focus. Like, your mentors and everyone around you is saying you're not doing very well at this thing. Just prioritize that thing. Try and learn that thing. And then, do you know what? If you get to the end of your teacher training and your I don't know, something else, another teacher standard is not so good yet, then you can focus on that one. And I kind of wish I could go back and tell myself to do that, because actually my behavior management then took like an extra year, I think, to get to a decent stage where it was like, oh no, the class are in a good place for learning.
And I guess this is where all of this advice molds into one, because what we're doing here, we're using observation feedback. We're using the forms given by a mentor and the advice that we're given, because we don't have an ego anymore. Remember, we learned not to have an ego, and we understand behavior management is bad. And then we're also knowing that we're not going to know everything straight away. And that's absolutely fine. And then do you know what you can do? If you're going to just prioritize things, you can go and observe someone who is known in the school to be really good at it. So if someone in the school has fantastic behavior management, but they may be style on you still where you want to have a similar style in terms of getting on with the children and being positive. Like, oh, you should go and see Dave. Dave's fantastic at that. We can go and watch him. We'll book you in. And I think what I want to say to someone right here is prioritizing. That does have to come from you. A lot of this has to come from you as a student teacher, because like we said, schools are incredibly busy. I can't fathom it enough. Like, these people want you to succeed in general. They want you to do well, but you have to take control. So if you've got your feedback and you see maybe you're weak at behavior management, for example, carrying on this example, what you should do then is go to your mentor, go to your class teacher and say, you know what? I had some feedback about my behavior management. I want to improve it. Who's good in the school that I could go and watch? As a teacher, if someone came to me and said that, I would be buzzing. I'd be excited. That person's going to be a good teacher. But, this is good. And you know what? I can now spend 5 minutes just helping you, rather than me having to proactively think about your career development as a trainee while still doing my job. Like, just being realistic for a second, that isn't going to happen.
I tell you what, it's one course where you're not going to get babibied through it.
No,
you are not going to get babied through this course. You got to make the effort big time and be active, like Dylan said right at the start of this conversation. Comparing it to our undergrad degrees, they were jokes compared to this. Genuinely, it was sort of like you just turn up to lectures and do a couple of essays. This one was like,
I think it's the placement that makes it so different.
Yeah, definitely. The placements where you can't be babied.
Because even if you're doing an undergraduate in primary, the placements make it so different to my undergraduate history.
Of course.
I had like 8 hours contact time a week and I could just not go. And I could just do some reading. No. Placements, you're doing the job basically from day one. And I think this kind of really nicely now rounds off with, I think the reason why Hayden and I love this job, and nothing makes me more joyous than when people who listen to this podcast message us and say how they can feel our passion and our love for the job, because we are very realistic and pragmatic. We talk about the problems with this job, but we are incredibly passionate about teaching. And why did we just spend an hour talking about this? Because we want the next generation of teachers to get advice and succeed and find out how amazing this job is. So the final tip that we wanted to talk about, enjoy it. Enjoy yourself. You are with the next generation. You are teaching. If you've got this far, you're probably passionate about helping people. Throw yourself into it again, but this time I mean with the kids. And I suppose what I want to say, and it's insane because we've done a whole podcast about this, ignore the negative talk.
Yeah.
You are at the start of your career.
Yeah.
We can be pragmatic all we want. We're experienced teachers. There's got to be a point where you're talking about, work-life balance, blah, 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 etc. You don't have to think about that just yet.
No.
Throw yourself into it. Enjoy being with the kids. Make mistakes with your teaching. Get better at it and have fun. The PGCE year for me, my training year, was some of the best years I had with the kids.
Yeah.
Because I made such a bond with them where I was often just sat on the table working next to them as the teacher did stuff. Ignore the negative talk. Let yourself form your own opinions of teaching as it goes. You will be weathered down. You will be ground down. You will think, oh my God, this job is just so frustrating. But you know what? You'll also figure out how amazing it is to teach kids and give them the eureka moment and help them.
Brilliant. I have nothing to add. That was a great monologue. I was thinking all those things myself. And I think,
And I've ruined it now because you were
No, it was brilliant. It was really good. It was extremely important. Extremely important to form your own opinions. I think that's the one thing I'll just say again. Try to ignore. It's very hard because you were the loudest people in the staff room and are normally the ones that are moaning.
Yeah. Or have a podcast.
Try to ignore it. Yeah. Try not to be like agreeing with them because they're experiencing. Be like, oh, they think that, so I should think that as well to fit in. Just nod and be like, yeah, that's cool. But actually, I'm really enjoying myself and I don't care that I'm spending all of my life doing this because it's the start of my journey and I'm really enjoying it personally. So whatever. Yeah.
You're allowed to have both.
Yeah.
You're allowed to understand the importance of work-life balance. You're allowed to understand, people who've been worn down by a system. You're allowed to get that it's a job at the end of the day. But you can still be very much looking forward to it every day. And don't let someone affect that. If you've got that buzz and that joy, don't let anyone affect it. Quick story from me. I was training. I was sat at the back of the room with my folder, doing some folder work. There's always some folder work to do as a trainer.
Probably lost it.
I think it probably did. The kids were, doing their PPA.
Yeah.
So the class teacher, Fran, was at the front. And then one of her friends came in, another fellow teacher, just came in, burst through the door and started talking about how this, blah, blah, this profession, these the pay rises and stuff, the government, moaning. Everything that we say legitimately that is completely, absolutely true and is absolutely fine to do. And Fran always had this look on her face like the student teacher is in the room, as if like, okay, I agree with you, but the person who's literally just starting this profession is right there. And I always remember the look on the person's face when they realised I was in there. They're like, oh, but it's lovely. Like they just really turned really quickly. But do you know what? Just be pragmatic. I knew all of that when I went into it.
Yeah.
But you know what? I love teaching. I love helping people. Yeah. I love those bonds with the kids. And I can't tell you guys enough how when you're on placement, seeing a child develop in any way, whether it's academic, social, whatever, and it's because of something you helped them with, there is nothing that can replace that. And if I ever quit teaching or didn't teach anymore, I don't know how I'd replace that feeling because there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. It's the best thing in the world when you help someone to get better at something or to get over a hurdle or to improve. It's unbelievable.
Seeing their little faces.
Oh, it's just such the best thing.
And the gratitude as well. Even the subliminal gratitude. Like, it's not necessarily kids saying, thank you, I now understand this concept. It's the confidence that grows in them that you think, oh God, I helped that. They're more confident now.
Yeah. And children change so quickly.
Yeah.
You know, over the year, they're completely different. Personalities change, the academia changes, and you're in charge of that. And that is it's a burden in a way, because it's your job, but it's a privilege, man. It's so good. Like, you know, love every minute of it. If you leave teaching in 3 or 4 years like most people do, I get it, but oh my goodness, put yourself into it whilst you do it. It's amazing.
Brilliant. I really enjoyed that chat.
Yeah, same.
And if you're a regular listener and you've been teaching for a long time, sorry about that. That one wasn't really for you.
But hopefully, you know, you can share it with someone who is. And if you're on your PGCE course or your BA course, or you're doing your undergraduate, or you're about to train, or you know someone who's training, you've already got the WhatsApp group full of people who are training as teachers, whack this link in there, because I'm really hoping it'll help them. And if it helped you, let us know. And tell
please
us,
get in touch.
Yeah, get in touch. Tell us.
A lot of people say this, and maybe disingenuously, but we love it when someone gets in touch and just says something, literally anything about the podcast, what they enjoyed. It makes us feel so good, and it makes us want to do more. Because you know what, we are just doing this as a bit of a passion project. It is a bit of fun, and we do want to help you guys. But nothing makes us feel better than
one person saying that they found it useful. Yeah. I'm like, cool, that's worth 10 weeks.
Yeah,
honestly. So can you just give us some compliments, please? Like, we talked about observations.
Our egos never did go.
The ego. We don't want criticism. We don't want 4-star reviews, please. We want all of the 5-star reviews and amazing things. But
man,
no, I enjoyed that.
Let's wrap this up. Yep. Let's wrap this up.
Let's go and get a curry.
It's been a pleasure. Have a nice evening, everyone.
Bye, guys.
It's definitely the evening when you listen to this.
Yeah, definitely. Bye.